I bet you didn't know what it feels like to build your entire life from nothing, only to walk into a room where billionaires laugh at you, judge your skin, and think their money can buy your dignity. Danielle Renee, a self-made CEO on the verge of signing a $500 million deal, came face to face with one of the richest families in America. But when the mask slipped, she shocked everyone by tearing up the contract right in front of them. Danielle Renee wasn't born into privilege, she was born into survival. Raised in Trenton, New Jersey by her aunt after losing her mother at just 10 years old, she knew what it meant to start with nothing. Nights of eating crackers for dinner, days of studying in public libraries, and years of working endless hours had turned her into one of the most powerful names in tech. By 41, she was the founder and CEO of Neurospace, a company redefining artificial intelligence. And now, she was about to close the biggest deal of her life, $500 million. Her SUV pulled up to the Bellington estate in East Hampton. Marble columns, endless glass, and gardens trimmed to perfection. It was the kind of wealth that didn't whisper, it shouted. At the door stood Charles Bellington, the billionaire patriarch, flashing the kind of smile that said he'd already won. "Welcome, Danielle," he said. "We're practically family now." Danielle returned the smile politely, but inside, she knew better. In his eyes, she was not a partner. She was an acquisition. His wife, Victoria, greeted her next. Perfectly tailored, polite, but reserved, as though she was still deciding if Danielle even belonged in their world. Danielle followed them inside, and from the very first step, she felt it. The weight of being the only black woman in that mansion, in that circle, probably in the entire weekend. That night, dinner was served in a grand hall, candlelight, fine china, a table long enough for kings. Danielle was introduced as the future of tech, but instead of being seated near the power players, she was quietly placed in the middle of the table, far from influence, far from decisions. The comments started almost immediately. "So," one guest smirked, "you're the genius Charles flew in?" Another chuckled, "We assumed you worked in media. You just have such presence." An older man leaned in. "I told Charles this was smart, getting some color into the portfolio. It's modern." Danielle's face stayed calm, but her voice was steady. "We're not paint samples, and my company isn't a diversity hire." But they didn't hear her. Or maybe they just didn't care. The final straw came when Charles's son, Gregory, slid into the chair beside her, uninvited. His tone casual but sharp as a blade. "You're impressive, Danielle, no doubt. But founders like you? Passion can look like volatility. A $500 million handshake needs someone steady. Temperament, you know?" Danielle turned and looked him dead in the eye. "Tell me, Gregory, if I were a 45-year-old white man in a fleece vest, would you still question my temperament?" Silence. He laughed nervously, but Danielle didn't. She stood, calm as stone, and walked away from the table. Because silence doesn't always mean defeat. Sometimes it means you refuse to play their game. That night, in her room, Danielle typed a single sentence. "After careful consideration, Neurospace will no longer pursue partnership with the Bellington Group." The next morning, she acted. No grand ballroom, no billionaire stage, just a small community center podium, crowded with reporters. Danielle looked straight into the cameras. "This decision is not about money," she said. "It's about values." Neurospace was built not just on technology, but on dignity, and integrity cannot be negotiated. Gasps rippled through the room. Cameras flashed, reporters scrambled. She didn't just walk away from $500 million, she walked away with something far more powerful. Control of her story, her company, and her dignity. Because Danielle knew the truth. When they don't give you a seat at the table, you don't beg for one. You build your own.